For the first time this year, I can guarantee Nebraska finishes 1-0 on Saturday. Satterfield's back to the drawing board, trying to find ways to work his new weapons into the game plan, and Tony White's just glad his elite group gets a couple of their leaders back and warmed up before Northwestern. Matt Rule knows he can still win the West, but his priority is getting this team in the habit of winning and finishing games so he can live up to the high expectations we'll have for him next year. I don't get to make a game preview today, so instead, I brought on Adam Carriker to get some of his takes on the hottest topics over the bye week, and I asked him some of the popular questions I found in the comment section. But what's up, guys? I'm Connor Hayden, and this is Corn Crazed. If you're a fan of Nebraska or the Big Ten, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my live interviews. And if you still think Nebraska can get to bowl season, hit the like button and help us get to 1,000. But now, let's get into it.
Thompson winds up, goes deep, got a man, touchdown!
We're back with Adam Carriker. Haven't gotten to do a video together in about a month and a half, Adam. I think it was since before the season. And I've been watching the videos. You got the uploads going. You're almost at 10,000 subscribers. How has it been running your own channel and taking it on all on your own this season?
I've enjoyed it a lot. I don't know if I mentioned this before to you last time. If I did, forgive me for repeating myself. I'd been thinking about kind of going on my own for a while, kind of doing my own thing. There's pluses and minuses to that. You know, one of the minuses is health insurance, things of that nature. When you've got 8 people in your family, that costs a pretty penny. And also the workload goes up. Honestly, workload has never bothered me. So when I went on my own and did that, I was excited because now it's what I want to do. And it really was with the Herald as well. There wasn't a whole lot. I wouldn't have stayed at all if they put a bunch of reins on me. But it's literally whatever I want to do. And, you know, the workload increase, honestly, what's that old saying? If you enjoy what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life. That's kind of how it's felt. So,
yeah, the beauty in us doing this on our own for fans is we're extremely motivated because we want to make sure that we're maximizing and building our brands as big as we can. So they're getting a lot of content. And I think that's been the cool part about watching your channel. You put out your own content and you've been doing a bunch of interviews and they've been really enjoyable. So as you guys know, Adam is a huge supporter of our show and he's a sponsor of our channel. I talk about that in almost every video. So Adam, thank you for that. But I want to kick off this interview and start off with your preseason expectation versus where we are today. So my preseason expectation, I had Nebraska at 4-2. We're pretty close to that at 3-3. I feel comfortable with still getting to a bowl game. How did you feel going into the year and where do we stand now up against your expectation?
So my preseason prediction was 7-5. And I don't remember where I had us at the halfway point, honestly. I probably had us about 3-3. I probably would have predicted a loss to Minnesota, a win to Colorado, probably beating Northern Illinois La Tech, and probably maybe I would have had us a 4-2, maybe splitting the last couple of opponents. But to me, you know, where we're at, 3-3, with all the injuries on the offense, with the way Matt Rule wants to build this from the ground up, which is going to be a bit of a slow burn. Okay. And that's okay with me. Like 6-6 was always my barometer. And that was always my measuring stick, not 5-7, not 4-8, 6-6 or better is allowed. But we're well on pace for that. And so right now, I think we can consider, while some ugly football has taken place, you know, the first half of the season, I would consider it a success so far, as long as we hit 6-6 at least.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, speaking of injuries and where we are so far, the season started really slow with Sims, and I never had a chance to talk about that with you, or I never even heard your take on it. You know, Harburg came in, he won 3 of the last 4. If you were the coach, are you going to continue to ride Harburg, or do you want to see Sims get one more shot, since we saw some bad throws and some misreads by Harburg in that Illinois game?
For me personally, the difference in the quarterback play isn't gargantuan. Like, I don't think that Harburg's exponentially better than Sims or vice versa. I do think Harburg is better than Sims because he has far less turnovers. So to me, that makes him a better quarterback if you just look at nothing else. And none of the other stats are that gargantuanly different. The other thing, and they're both athletic guys. I mean, I chatted with Harburg's dad. They talked about putting him at tight end. Rule told me that. He obviously played some receiver. He's an athlete. You can move him around. You can do that with Sims. I do think Sims maybe has better potential at other positions. Like, when we're like, we have three receivers that are out for the year, three guys who
Yeah.
could have contributed a lot. Okay. When you look at the injuries in the backfield, I'm like, man, maybe Sims could help us in a running back rotation. Maybe Emmett Johnson, great burst, immediately puts the ball on the ground. Young guy, he'll get better. We need help at the wide receiver spot. We have nobody that can stretch the field for us at the wide receiver spot. Big, tall, athletic guy. Can he catch? I don't know. But it's one of those things where I think he can help us in other areas. And Harburg hasn't turned the ball over as much.
That's fair. Do you think there would be any chance at Sims switching position? I've always looked at that and said, he came here as a quarterback and the coaches hyped him up to be an NFL prospect potentially. Obviously, he's getting paid as a quarterback through NIL. Do you think there would be any chance that he would switch to another position?
I think there's a chance. I don't think it's over 50%. I just simply give my opinion and what I think. I'm not predicting what the coaches are going to do.
Yeah.
Now, the bye week, I got to assume Sims is going to be pretty healthy when we come back for Northwestern, if not, like 90%, if not more. So for me, if they're going to do anything with him, it's going to be after the bye week, outside the quarterback position. I do think he showed he is exactly who he was at Georgia Tech. Yeah. Big, talented, got lots of potential, but he turns the ball over. Okay. So you've got to be able to call an audible if you're a coach, if that's what you think is best.
Fair enough. Talking about the offense, there have been a lot of comments about Satterfield and basically the offense not pulling their weight in terms of how well the defense has been doing. And it looked like Rule was upset with them on Friday. I didn't really understand what was going on, but a lot of comments came in on my live stream right after saying, oh, it looks like Rule had to call timeouts to change plays. So I want to know what your thoughts are on the offense so far, on this offensive staff. Is Sat a really good offensive coordinator that fits what Rule wants to do? Is that why he went after him? Is he lacking weapons? What is it that's made this offense not live up to what Nebraska fans would have hoped it would have been?
Well, coming into the season, I think we knew the defense was ahead of the offense. If you look at who got the single-digit numbers, it was like 8 defensive guys, 2 offensive guys. Okay, and so that right there told you a lot. There were scrimmages where the defense was considerably ahead of the offense, and that was not made to be a secret. So to me, I'm not shocked that we're a defensive team. And Rule even said the defense has to know that we're a defensive team. In other words, you got to carry the team while the offense tries to catch up, hopefully sooner rather than later. So I'm not shocked. I think multiple things can be true at once. I think Satterfield is doing what Rule wants, which is run the ball, ground and pound. I think we also don't know if he's the best fit. Of the 3, I'm going to say coordinators and head coach, he's the least proven. He's had the least amount of success elsewhere. So coming in, I had questions about the 3-3-5, okay, but Tony White had success with the 3-3-5, obviously. That they're kind of a package deal, but Tony had success at Syracuse. Rule had success elsewhere. Satterfield had certain amount of success. I think his last 2 games at South Carolina, they scored like 50, 60 points. But if you were looking for something more consistently over time, it wasn't there as much. So he was kind of the guy with the biggest question mark coming in. I still feel the same way. I have no idea if he's the best long-term fit here. I think so far he's been kind of what I thought he would be, and hopefully he's learning and getting better and progressing. Now, in his defense, we don't have an offensive line that pass protects well. We don't have receivers that stretch the field, and there's been a plethora of injuries on offense, and the guy that you brought in to be your quarterback may not even be your best quarterback.
Right.
So he's dealing with a few things in his defense as well.
Yeah, right. 5 starters in the original depth chart are now not playing in that offense, which is unheard of. Talking about position coaches, I want to know who you thought or who you think your top 3 would be right now. I'm going to go with somebody on defense as mine, but I want to know who you think.
Top 3 position coaches?
Position coaches.
That's tough. I don't think we know enough yet.
Well, at this point in the season so far, there has been some positive at different positions.
The linebacker, the D line has played really well. That was the biggest question mark coming into the season on defense. So pot roast, Coach Knighton, he's got to be one of those guys. Okay, the way the defense has played, Hutmaker and Robinson, and you got Cam Lightheart, the true freshman, coming in playing well when he gets reps. You could argue it's just the 3 defensive coaches if you really wanted to, because you go to the quarterback's coach, that's Satterfield. The offensive line hasn't played great. The receivers haven't created separation. The running backs have been banged up. So I don't know how you pick somebody on offense just based on those things alone. I think the one guy that sticks out to me, because it was a gigantic question mark with inexperience, was the D line. So Pot Roast sticks out to me the most.
Yeah, I think that's mine as well. I think the linebackers obviously have improved a bit. You have guys who haven't played much, like uh, Javen Wright and Bullock, and they've both performed. And yeah, I think pot roast is the obvious with so many young guys performing right away and guys who transferred in. So I like that pick. I want to know who your most likely win is out of these three in the back half of the schedule. These are three tough games: Maryland, at Wisconsin, and Iowa. Which one's the most likely that they pull off?
Probably Iowa. Iowa's got their own things they're dealing with. I have all these I have 6 kids, and I see my kids are on a million different teams. All my kids are multi-sport athletes. Okay, so they're all on 3 different teams, and so that's 18 different teams. I have twins, so 15 different teams we're a part of. Like 15 different T-shirts I could wear on this show. I chose to wear this one, but I digress. So I see daddy ball everywhere. I see mommy ball everywhere. It's people don't even try to hide it anymore. I didn't think I'd see it at Division I football. That's the shocking part to me. Now you can say Dion's doing it, but then you look at who the top quarterback in the country is statistically, and it's his son. So how do you argue daddy ball?
Can't.
You look at Iowa, and they're consistently not a good offense.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to say, hey, if he wasn't Baby Ferentz, he wouldn't be coaching there anymore. So kind of went on a side ramble rant there. But to me, Iowa lost Cade McNamara. I felt like he was a little bit overrated, and I say that with all due respect coming in. Had he not transferred from Michigan, I don't think he would have been as highly thought of with the same exact stats and accolades and film. So I felt like he was a little overrated. Then he's out for the year, unfortunately. Wish him a speedy recovery. They weren't producing great numbers with him. They're not going to be as good without him. Their rushing offense isn't as good. It's like 105th in the country, and that's what they do is run the ball. They don't pass the ball. They're 128th in the country offensively. Defensively, 17th in the country, okay, when it comes to points allowed, scoring defense. So they're still playing solid defense. They still find ways to win games, okay? Some of the ugliest football games you'll ever see, but they haven't played a whole lot of tough teams yet. Penn State kind of whipped the rear end sideways. I think that was 38-0. I don't even know if Iowa got past their own 10-yard line. I'm kidding, kind of. So to me, I think Iowa has a whole bunch of things they're dealing with. I actually think Wisconsin's a pretty good football team. They're not going to the spread like they were hoping. Tanner Mordecai, the SMU quarterback, transferred. He's struggling. He's up and down, but you still got Thunder and Lightning at running back, Braylon Allen. They can still play defense. They can still block really well. They're physical, well coached. They're a pretty good football team. I do think we can play that game close because we're mirror images of each other. Run the ball, stop the run, be physical, wear you out as the game goes along. I think Maryland's a pretty good team.
Yeah, Maryland looks pretty complete.
Yeah. Anytime you get a Tango Viola at quarterback, it tends to be a recipe for success. They've got some athletes at the skill position. They beefed up their front seven on defense through the transfer portal. So I'm not saying we can't win those games, and I don't think we get blown out because of our defense in any of those games. So we could possibly win any one of those games.
Oh, yeah.
Most likely I'm going to go with Iowa.
Well, I think that's what most people want to win. And going back to what you said about Ferentz, do you think that it's true if the OC doesn't hit that 25-point average, he will be let go after this season, or do you think they're going to end up keeping him either way?
Nobody believes it. Like, nobody I know believes it. So I'm going to be the contrarian and say, yeah, unless it's like 24, like he's going to have 25 points a game, which they're not going to average.
No.
They're not going to, not with the rest of their slate. Not that it's murderer's row, but they're not going to average 25 points a game. So Daddy Ferentz is going to have a hard decision at the end of the year.
It's going to be very tough. Okay, so before the season started, there was one star player who Nebraska fans all love and wanted to see succeed. His name is Thomas Fidone. He got his first start at tight end after 2 knee injuries. And I'm going to be honest with you, I changed my expectations for him going into this year than when he had first come in as a true freshman, because 2 knee injuries is a serious setback, right? I had some comments saying that he's under-delivered, but it's hard for me to keep those expectations, like I said. So based on what your expectations were for him, do you think he's performed at the level you would have hoped, or do you think that the offense isn't utilizing him enough? What's your take on the Fidone situation? Because I think he's one of the best weapons Nebraska has right now.
He is. He's really the only thing that's any sort of a deep threat at all right now on offense. The last tight end that I can, maybe I'm missing somebody that I could think of that was similar, was Matt Harrion. Okay, back when I played, him and Jamal Lord. So has he under-delivered? I don't think so. I don't think so, because you do have to alter the expectations. 2 serious knee injuries causes problems. He's not wearing that brace out there for fun. Nobody likes wearing a brace. Okay. And that thing does limit what you can do. That's why only offensive linemen, and I know not every team does this, but only offensive linemen have to wear them. Okay. Because offensive linemen don't have to be athletes. There, I said it. They don't have to move far. But it protects their knees. They tried to, when Callahan first came in, they forced us to wear them all spring. I pouted and threw a fit like a whiny little baby. And it worked. At the end of the spring, we never had to wear them again. I was so happy. Coach Blake looked at me at the end of the spring. He goes, "Okay, Carriker, I'll go talk to Bill." I was like, "Thank you." So he's not wearing that thing for fun. And it's not helping him play better, but obviously he needs to wear it for a reason. So you take that into consideration. You take into consideration we have quarterbacks. I wouldn't call them elite passers. We don't have an elite passing game. We don't have elite pass blockers. We don't have a whole lot of options to throw the ball to. It's kind of Fedome and Kemp for the most part. I think he's done fine. I would like to see his role grow as the season goes along. Now, his former roommate's throwing him the ball, so it's not like Harburg isn't looking for him, but I would like to see his role continue to grow.
Fair enough. I want to know your top performer so far on the year, either side of the ball. Best player.
I mean, I'm going to surprise some people. I'm going to go Nash Hutmaker on defense. Okay, because the 3-3-5 defense, it doesn't work. It's like a 3-4 defense. It doesn't work unless you got somebody controlling the entire middle of the field. And I think everyone knew how strong he was and what his potential was, but he was so inexperienced. He's still a young player. Nobody knew what to expect, really. I think he's performed very, very well. So there's other guys you can mention. Absolutely. I mean, Isaac Gifford comes to mind as another potential guy. So we got a lot of players across the field on that defense that I think have played well, but I don't think any of it works if your nose guard's getting blown off the ball, and he is controlling the middle of that defense. Barring one game, nobody can run on this team consistently. Offensively, it's a little bit more of a challenge. The names that pop into my head, Billy Kemp, okay, Fedone pops into my head as a potential option. Harburg pops into my head as a potential option. I'm going to go with Harburg because, and I'm not trying to throw Jeff Sims under the bus, but I think we win games with Harburg at quarterback that we don't with someone else at quarterback, if nothing else, because he takes care of the ball and he can make plays.
I agree with that. I've got questions from my comment section. We've got about 5 minutes left here before you got to get out of here. I want to know if you think next year's starting quarterback and starting running back are on this year's roster.
That's a great question. Oh man, I think so. Gabe Irvin's a guy who's now had 2 serious injuries. He's clearly a guy that worked hard in the offseason. If you looked at his freaking offseason pictures, okay. I don't know about, man, that's tough. The running back is tough just because he's banged up and he's the most likely candidate. I'm going to go with he is on the roster. I think quarterback's a little bit even more wide open because they're going to bring in a transfer portal guy probably to compete with Harburg or if Sim stays or whatever he does. I'm going to say one is and one is not.
Fair. Are you surprised that this team has as much depth as they do this early into the rebuild?
No. And there's areas that they don't have depth that we would like. There's areas we'd like better starters, but that's just part of a rebuild. I'm not because of what the transfer portal can offer. And I know we didn't take a Deion Sanders approach, okay, or Ryan Braum out at Louisville approach as far as bringing in a million guys. And that's okay because we want to develop from the inside out. So it's got a better stable base, better long-term foundation for the program itself. I'm not because if you target the right guys in the transfer portal, you can build things quicker, including depth.
Well, I think what some people are surprised by is how well the freshmen have performed, right? You had Lenhart come in, Prince Will's in. Those guys have both been playing really well. At receiver, you now have Malachi Coleman, who's going to have to take on a starting role. So these are all guys who I don't know if they would have been developed as quickly underneath the last staff. So I think this staff has shown us that they have that, I guess, skill set that the last didn't, and that's what people are most excited about. 44%. Continue.
I think one thing that I noticed with Frost was the type of players he was recruiting changed quickly. If you just look at the receivers, it was kind of the Oregon small, fast type receivers. And then as time went along, the guys we were recruiting were a lot bigger. So I think how Frost envisioned the team was changing a lot more often as he was trying to figure out what to do, so to speak. Whereas Rule, he knows what the end product is. So it's much easier to recruit the right guy when you know exactly what you want the end product to be. If I go to the grocery store and I don't know what I'm cooking, what the hell do I buy?
Yeah.
But if I know the exact ingredients for, I don't know, I'm gonna say cake because I want cake right now. If I know the exact ingredients for the cake, I can go right there and get it, and boom, it's going to be easier to make.
That's a great point. Okay, how would you have liked to play for this staff, and how would you have fit in the 3-3-5, or which player would you compare yourself to on that defense?
I would have loved to have played for this staff. One of the most fun interviews I had was with Tony White back in August. I really enjoyed that interview, and then I think I let you know. Him and I chatted for 30 minutes afterwards. That in itself could have been a great interview. I would have loved to have. How do I fit in? Well, I'm not a rover, probably not a linebacker. I'm a D end. So I'd probably be a 3-3-5 defensive end, similar to kind of what I was in DC when I was a 3-4 defensive ends. Something similar to that, probably.
Cool. I wish I could have seen it because we needed an Adam Carriker level guy in this defense for a rotation, but we'll take what we've got. Since you were a pro, who would you say your top 3 pro prospects are on this team?
Oh, let's see. I mean, some of the young guys pop into my head, honestly. When you come in and you play like Cam Lightheart has, he's eventually going to have a bright future. Nash Hutmaker is going to have a bright future. I do think Anthony Grant, if he takes care of the ball these last 6 games and he runs the ball like we want to run the ball and like he's capable of, I mean, he wasn't the number 1 JUCO prospect in the country for nothing. So those are the 3 guys that pop into my head immediately. With Fedoni, I know his straight line speed is phenomenal. What was he clocked at, like 22 miles an hour for a tight end? That's insane. He has the physical attributes and size and things that you look for. For me, when you're coming back from knee injuries, it's the COD, the change of direction, which is what the brace is on his knee for. How does that progress over the years? Okay. That's something I'd keep my eye on with him. But those are 4 names that just kind of pop into my head immediately.
Okay, I've got 2 more questions. I know your kids are coming home soon. 44% of this roster is made up of freshmen. How likely is it that this staff keeps a majority of this class for their entire career without them transferring?
I think it's way more likely here than it is at other universities for 2 reasons. Because when I interviewed Matt Rule way back in December, if anybody remembers that, I asked him that question. I'm like, this is the era of NIL, the transfer portal. People come and go. If they don't like what's going on, they're gone. How can you plan on developing and building a program through development if people are going to come and go? And he said, first of all, it's about recruiting the right type of kids. Again, knowing what type of cake you want to make so you can get the right ingredients, so to speak. And then, I asked him about, in a separate question, but it pertains to this, NIL, trying to recruit people using here with NIL. And he's like, the big NIL is the NFL. So if you want to come here and you want to get better and you want to make more money through your draft status and through your second contract, which is where most people get their big money if they're ever going to get it, he's like, come here and get developed. And so for me, it's looking for the right type of people. And then it's also getting people to buy in. This is a guy that kids want to buy into. And so I think they're going to buy into, yeah, he's hard on me, but he loves me and he's doing it to make me better, which is ultimately going to benefit the team that I'm currently on and my status one day in the NFL, if that is indeed my dream.
I like that. Last question. Because it's so important that the offense does improve, do you think they can continue to improve even though they're down so many guys and they're starting to have to play the true freshmen?
It's a great question. I go immediately to the left side of the offensive line, because we need better play there. We just do. Teddy Prohaska is a guy that we need to come back, play like he's capable of. He's been banged up. What's his level of capability at this point? Play like he's capable of, stay healthy, stay on the field. And if not, be a full-time starter, full-time player, okay, at least be a part of a rotation or something like that. So if the left side of the line can improve their play, that's going to drastically improve a lot of things. I don't think the offense is going to get worse, because I think a couple of things. I think as this season goes along, a lot of the young guys that we're playing are just going to get more and more experience. Okay, and it's not like we've got world beaters in our last 6 games. And our next 3 games are great opportunities to get these guys experience for our tougher last 3 games. Okay, so the other thing I would think about is the quarterback position. If it is indeed Harburg that stays the starter, he's only going to get better. Like, I think his dad would be okay with me telling this. He grabbed me outside the stadium as I was walking around. It was right after I met you, actually. So I like every once in a while I hear people say my name, and he like literally grabbed me by the arm, and he's Heinrich's dad, and so we chatted. And it's one of those things where a year ago he wasn't traveling with the team,
Yeah.
he wasn't even in meetings, he wasn't even a part of the plan. Now he's starting. How insane is that? How much better could he have been had he been a part of those things a year ago? So I actually expect his maturation process to be rather quickly now that he's actually able to do things that he probably should have been doing but wasn't included in.
Yeah, and I think this bye week is huge for him and a lot of the other guys who are younger and haven't gotten as many opportunities. So we're going to find out about the offense, and hopefully they can perform, because that would push this team at least to bowl eligibility and maybe even more. But Adam, I know you got to get out of here, go be with your kids. So thank you for coming on the show. Is there anything else you got to let people know about your channel, what you've got going on?
Oh man, Carriker Chronicles. So, this past week I've interviewed Bill Bush. I don't know when you're going to air this, but tomorrow morning, Jordan Larson's going out. I give my official prediction Saturday morning. I don't think I've ever put out a show on Saturday morning before. I tend to do more during bye weeks this year than I've ever done in the past. It's like a loaded bye week. So if you think Nebraska is going to go to a bowl game or not, hear my thoughts. And then Kenny Bell on Monday. I got a question for you. What play is this?
What play is what?
Play?
Black 41 flash reverse. It's the one in the Oklahoma game in 2000.
Yeah. All right. I knew you'd know it.
I was a kid back then, but I'll never forget the big moments, right?
Yeah, I literally just found this in my closet. I didn't even know I had it right before I was coming on here. True story.
I love it. Well, hey, Adam, you're almost 10,000 subscribers. If you haven't gotten a chance to check out Adam's channel yet, make sure you go to Carriker Chronicles on YouTube. I linked it in the description box below. Adam, thank you for coming on. We always appreciate your insight. You've got awesome things to say because you've got so much experience, obviously, as a player, and you are so connected to this program. So, again, thank you for coming on the show, and we can't wait to have you back.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk soon. Adam's always a great guest, and I made sure to ask him the questions that you wanted answers to. So I hope you enjoyed our show together. But I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments below. Do you think the offense has a chance to get better, or is the defense going to have to continue to save the day? Do you think next year's QB is already on the roster, or will Rule hit the portal for the second time? And how would you grade Satterfield's performance if you include the 5 big injuries? I said it before, it's hard to judge a guy who's building a system around somebody else's players, so I'm going to have to hold back judgment until I get to see what he does next season. But that's all I've got for today, so until next time, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Go Big Red.